This is my Dungeon 23 notebook. Dungeon 23 is this thing made up by Sean McCoy, the guy who made Mothership, where, for the year 2023, a bunch of people drew their own mega dungeons, one room every day, one floor every month. This is October, the Undervault. You can see I'm drawing these directly on a calendar. I think I was the only one to use this kind of planner. Anyway, the Undervault is the level below the Stygian tundra, a frozen hellscape that was the subject of my previous Dungeon 23 video. It's an unimaginably huge cavern extending seemingly forever in all directions. The players enter from one of several entrances above to find massive pillars and stalactites connected to the ceiling of the vault. At the tops of these formations lives a small civilization of spire dwarves that have carved out homes and connected them with makeshift bridges. You have to be sure of your footing here, though, because if you fall, you just keep falling. For so long, you'll die of thirst or hunger. That is, if the spire bats don't catch you first. That's what these nasty guys are. Giant, flesh-eating bats that hang out on the underbranches of the gargantuan night tree. If you survive their bite, which is pretty unlikely, you could contract vampirism, which can have its benefits, but is often more trouble than it's worth. This floor is kind of unusual in that it's heavily shaded to imply the vast, empty space all around. I vary the shading quite a bit to give the impression of the huge stone pillars fading into the darkness. And then the tree bark also needs some shading, which I mostly do with lines that go in the direction of the tree's growth, give or take. I vary the density of the lines to create the illusion of light and shadow, which gives the tree some volume. Okay, and I'll just fill in the rest of the void here. If this looks tedious, it is, but it's, a kind of tedium that I enjoy. Nice. Okay. This day is just going to be the tree. So the night tree is this impossibly huge underground tree that grows through several floors of the dungeon. It is highly toxic to most living things. The significance of the tree will become apparent on the next level, I think. But getting there will be quite the challenge. Most of the levels are tens or maybe 100 feet apart. But the next level is many, many, many miles down. Between the spire bats eating you, running out of food and water mid-drop, and of course, making a soft landing. There are a lot of hurdles to making it down there in one piece. But down there is where the fabled Blades of Gixa lie, which it's said the wielder can use to control life and death, the dungeon's ultimate prize. Or so they say. The Blades of Gixa is also the name of the book that this is going to become. I'll print it as a ring-bound notebook-style module with multiple versions of each spread and pages for notes to use while running it, as well as a set of fancy posters. Follow the Kickstarter page to get notified when it launches, and get yourself a copy of this weird project. So this day is just tree. It's not really a room. Most of my days aren't really rooms, to be honest, but most have an actual traversable area. I mean, technically this is traversable too. The players could climb on the branches, but the tree is insanely poisonous, so it's not really recommended. But I'm dedicating this day to the tree, as well as a good amount of the previous and following days, because the tree is not only huge, it's also important, and dedicating a lot of space on the page helps to show that. The next day sort of mirrors 1019, the other side of the tree. And we got some more bats over here, just hanging out. Some more darkness, more branch shading, and a dome. A vampire dome. What does that mean? I don't know. I'll figure it out. And I'll put a 7-pointed star on it, a symbol that comes up a few times in the dungeon. Okay, so here we have a pillar of stone. There's a bridge connecting it to another pillar. They don't have normal materials down here, so the bridge is mostly made from dried mushroom parts. Woven mycelium ropes, dried planks carved from giant mushrooms, stuff like that. And here's an entrance to this floor, coming from the burned cathedral above. I'm just making sure I have the room reference right here. And here I'll just touch up a few things. And add some paths to explore. And just drawing some lines to give the stone some shape and volume. And here's the entrance to a tomb of ancient dwarven spire lords, which requires some items from the upper level to open, leading to a chute that deposits you in a weird puzzle room. The puzzle will be something dwarfy, maybe involving some bit of masonry being just slightly misaligned. Okay, skipping ahead a bit thanks to some hard drive issues and data loss. Up above, we have a pillar of sacrifice where dwarves are sometimes bound as offerings to the bats. And below, an ornate but dirty throne room for the last master of the Spire Dwarves, the Vampire Lord. This is a good spot for some information about the Night Tree. One of the cool things about drawing a dungeon this way is that I can put as much info as possible right on the map, where the DM can see it without having to reference anything. This does come with its challenges though, like balancing space for drawing the map with space for describing the things on it. Plenty can run off into the margins if needed, but it also means the dungeon layout is actually affected by the descriptions, which, among other things, makes it harder to have a player-facing version. There's always trade-offs, but I like working this way. It feels kind of like drawing a comic book. Now I'm just filling in the rest of the tree, winding down into the abyss. So the actual navigable feature for this day is a hallway carved into this arch, which has some traps. Pretty simple. An illusory floor here, which will drop you into the abyss. And then over here, a classic spike pit. Is there going to be enough space to write? No. Okay. The Vampire Lord can just float over the traps. One of the benefits of vampirism. Okay, back around to the dome. What's supporting it? One of the funny things about working this way is you can create the start of something not knowing what the rest will be. And then, a week later, you have to figure it out. It's like a weird game you play with your future self. Anyway, thanks to those hard drive problems, I also don't have footage of drawing the scroll library, but you get it. Holes for scrolls in the wall, cushions on the ground where you can curl up and have a nice pleasant read. In this chamber here, I figure it's a place where the Vampire Lord can observe the magical domed ceiling and spy on what goes on above. Plus, there's that little balcony where he can take off and land when he needs to eat someone. Next day. Underneath the entrance to the crypt of the Spire Lords. Just a quick edit to this room here. I want it to be nice and rectangular. Okay, some stairs down to the crypt. This will all be connected. I guess the Vampire Lord was once one of these Spire Lords who became infected. And a narrow shaft down from the grid room with a little opening off to the side, containing a hoard of massive wealth. Getting to it and getting the loot out may prove challenging. Down below, the sarcophagi of the 7 Spire Lords of old. And yeah, one of them, afflicted with vampirism, rose to rule the dwarves once again. He's a character the players will likely have to contend with, and he's not a nice guy. You know, I feel like you don't see vampire dwarves that often. What's that about? If there's some fiction you like with a vampire dwarf, let me know. So, that's what I recorded myself drawing. And here's where October wound up. There's more to fill out in the margins. Details, lore, characters, tables, and so on. But the actual floor is done. Thanks to all the channel supporters, shown here. You make it possible for me to continue making these videos. If you enjoyed this and you'd like to see more, why not become a member right here on YouTube or on my website, paradiso.zone. For just the price of a small, medium, or fancy cup of coffee each month, in addition to keeping the channel going, you can get early access to videos, special members-only videos, and behind-the-scenes posts, your name in the credits. And if you're feeling fancy, you can also get your name permanently inscribed in a piece of terrain in a future video. And once again, if you're interested in getting a copy of this dungeon, check out the Kickstarter page to get notified when it launches. Thanks for your support, and thanks for watching.